Hello and welcome to this presentation about the Enhanced Evidence Broker in Quorum Social Program Management version 702. In this presentation, we'll give you a bit of background on the Evidence Broker so you understand the purpose it serves and why it is so important. We're then going to take you through a caseworker persona so you can understand how the Evidence Broker impacts their work today. We'll then move on to an overview of the solution, including descriptions of the 2B scenario, in other words, the changes in version 702. And we'll finish by telling you where you can find more information about the updates. One thing to note is that this presentation focuses on the functionality for caseworkers. Please refer to the technical deep dive recording for information on the technical design and the functionality targeted at administrators and analysts. The Quorum Evidence Broker can help agencies to adopt a flexible approach to evidence sharing. Using the Evidence Broker, agencies can define the rules of sharing per evidence type and per case type. The Evidence Broker acts as a receiver and broadcaster of evidence. In other words, when evidence on a source case is configured to share with evidence on a target case, when that evidence is activated, it's broadcast or shared to the target case, and that evidence is then synced up with evidence on the target case. The Evidence Broker facilitates these requirements. Support the no wrong door concept. A citizen shouldn't have to know which caseworker or office they need to update with their information. They should be able to present to any front office and have their changes used across the business units and programs that need it. Supporting separate lines of business in a single Quorum SPM instance. Data needs to be synchronized across separate lines of business operating on the same Quorum instance. Reduce data entry for caseworkers. Caseworkers want to reduce time on the system tasks associated with evidence maintenance and transfer and spend more time helping their clients. Support customers' requirements around data privacy and data consent. The Evidence Broker provides the data separation that is needed to support consent requirements. For example, an agency may need to capture a client's consent for use of their data for a specific purpose, program, or benefit. So even if an agency unites several business units on a single Quorum instance, it may not be appropriate to share all of their evidence across those units. The Evidence Broker is flexible enough to accommodate both scenarios, and that is, where evidence is synchronized and where clients consent to usage in certain areas. Facilitation of separate data usage. Although the agency objective may be to share data across its business units, separation of evidence may still be needed. A straight-through application process provides a good example of this. Straight-through processing for one specific program shouldn't be prevented because another program requires verification of the evidence. Evidence sharing requires that some separation of evidence used across multiple programs can be maintained. In version 702, the Evidence Broker has been redesigned to provide a more advanced and seamless sharing process. The following slides illustrate these changes through as-is and 2B scenarios so that you can understand the benefit to agencies. We are going to start with this as-is scenario to help illustrate how the evidence sharing process prior to version 702 could impact caseworkers. Meet Anne, our caseworker. She works with clients who apply for or currently receive a benefit. She talks to clients about their needs and current circumstances, and also interacts with the Quorum system to address the needs of her clients so that the correct outcome is achieved. Here are some of the tasks that Anne performs in her day-to-day work. She processes program applications through to their delivery. She ensures that the evidence on the case is up to date and verified. She manages clients' change of circumstances and verifies these changes and new information that they provide. And manually updates evidence on her cases based on changes that are shared from another source, sometimes rekeying the same information. Right now, Anne spends a lot of her time managing evidence that has been shared onto her cases from other sources. She can't understand why some of the changes she gets need her intervention. With the only options available to her for processing these changes as accept and reject evidence, She has no option other than to manually update evidence on her case to sync up with the evidence she has received. While she has the experience to know what to do, she is often asked to help her less experienced colleagues out who are uncertain. This takes away from her time, and she worries that data could be updated incorrectly by those who are less sure about how to process the changes correctly. Anne wants the system to have more intelligence so that evidence that comes into her cases can be resolved without her intervention. And she wants to be sure that when she makes updates to her cases, those updates go where they need to without any further follow-up. To ensure that caseworkers like Anne can manage their cases more efficiently, the new evidence broker provides new functions and processes that address the issues she has today. Advanced data matching algorithms that remove duplicate information and automatically resolve shared evidence. A conflict occurs when the system is unable to determine the actions that need to be taken with the evidence that has come in, but this happens only for genuinely conflicting information. A new incoming evidence list with an expandable comparison that highlights the differences in attributes between evidence shared and evidence already held on the case. This allows Anne to quickly see mismatches in data and make decisions. Many evidence types have relationships to each other. For example, parent-child evidence records. So it's important that Anne has the entire context of an evidence change when it comes into her case. For example, in Curum's income support solution, details of a client's employment are captured in an employment evidence type, which represent the details of the employer and when employment started with them. A child evidence type of earnings is associated with that parent employment to capture the amount of income they receive from that employment. If earnings from another case were updated and shared onto Anne's case, she needs to know which employment record those earnings are associated. Now, when evidence like this is shared to a case, both the parent and child will be displayed together so that Anne has the context she needs. Rather than just accept or reject, as was previously the case, Anne will have more options to her that mean she doesn't have to manage evidence outside of the incoming evidence screens. The majority of these new options will be coming in version 702 iFix 2. This release will be available several weeks after the 702 release. The actions provided in the iFix will be covered in this recording so you know what they are all about. Evidence that is designed and structured differently between cases, yet has information in common, is referred to as logically equivalent. The common information contained in these evidences need to be shared with their logically equivalent. This is possible with the new and more comprehensive logically equivalent evidence mapping process. To illustrate the benefits of the new evidence sharing process and how it makes things easier for caseworkers like Anne, you really need to see it in action. So we are providing some recordings that capture the before and after for the scenarios you see here. These will be available in the Knowledge Centre. These are the scenarios we are covering so far, but we plan to provide more soon. I'm going to take you through one sharing example that can occur using the previous version of the evidence broker. In the scenario I'm about to show you, evidence sharing is set up to share between an application case and an integrated case and vice versa. It isn't set up to automatically accept changes onto either of those cases. As mentioned on the previous slide, we're going to illustrate one scenario that can occur today and what it might mean for Anne. In this example, let's say there's a new application that's come in for her client, Linda Smith. Linda already has an ongoing case, so the address that was on that case has been shared onto the incoming list on her new application case. So we start the scenario with Anne the caseworker having navigated to that page on the application case and selected the compare option that is available on the row-level action menu from the incoming list screen. Firstly, if you look at the comparison view, it's hard to make out what the differences are. But then Anne notices that the only difference in the address is that the street name has one letter and an extra number that is different. That is, one lane versus same street. Anne can't be completely sure which one is correct because both could be valid, so she contacts the client Linda to find out which address is correct. Linda tells Anne that the original address she had was correct, that is, 11 Same Street. She just made a typo in the new one when she submitted her application online. Based on this information, Anne wants to be able to correct the address on the application case using that information she has from the incoming evidence. She can't do this though. Anne has just two options. She can either accept the evidence that came in or reject it. Anne selects to accept the existing record onto her application case, as she thinks that this will result in the system updating the wrong address on the application with the correct one. However, as can be seen here, accept simply results in the record being inserted onto the application case. You can see now that Anne has the incorrect record that was submitted on the application and the correct record which was created as a result of accepting that shared record from her existing case. To ensure that only the correct record exists on her application, Anne now needs to either delete the record she just accepted onto the case and then manually update the one she had already with the information that is correct, or she could delete the incorrect one after accepting on the existing one. In this scenario, she decides to delete the record she just accepted onto the case and then update the incorrect record manually with the street address of same street. Even though this takes a bit longer, it does illustrate that either way, Anne still has to manage the evidence on the case to get the records corrected, and this adds more time to the process. And not to forget, Anne is experienced. Another caseworker may not realise they need to modify the evidence, and that would result in the incorrect record being added to the integrated case once the application was authorised. Here's the new incoming list page with the expandable comparison view. This is just to illustrate some of the features that will help caseworkers such as Anne manage those conflicts when they do come into their incoming list. All the information and actions a caseworker needs to have to review and make a decision are provided from within this page. The first feature to highlight is the graphical timeline, which indicates the evidence records within the dataset as it has changed over time. This also applies to the existing evidence held. Selecting a node in the timeline will display the evidence details at that time and also helps the caseworker in their decision making. In addition, you can now easily see the differences between the shared evidence and the existing record as the attributes that are being compared and that are different are highlighted. In addition, caseworkers will now have more options on resolving shared evidence. They may choose to update the record held on the target or existing case with all or some of the information that came from the incoming record. The caseworker may decide to indicate that the existing evidence is part of the same set of evidence as the incoming record, but it is an updated version of that record. With this flow, they will have options to indicate why they are retaining the existing record. For example, because the existing record is an update to the shared record, or because the existing record is a correction to the shared record. Note that these actions will be provided in the version 702 iFix2, available after the 702 release. Lastly, this screen shows a parent-child evidence example. You can see that in this list, both the parent and child evidence type are shown together, and when expanded, the details of both are included. And just to reiterate, the most important thing to note for this page is that caseworkers only get shared evidence in their list to action if the configuration indicates that the evidence must always be reviewed, or if the system cannot automatically resolve the incoming evidence with evidence already held after it has gone through a comprehensive matching process. This means that caseworkers will only get genuine conflicts that really do need that human intervention. For more information about the evidence broker, a new evidence broker guide has been provided. The following sections provide details on all of the business functionality as you see them here. In addition, I mentioned before that we will be providing a number of recorded scenarios. These recorded scenarios will demonstrate how the evidence broker works today under certain scenarios and how the same scenarios work with the new evidence broker. This is IBM's legal disclaimer.